Welcome to Expired Musings podcast. My name is Ragad.
And I'm a man, and this is where all our thoughts go to die.
So have fun.
Yep. Okay, guys, so welcome to the first official episode of Expired Musings. We are a couple of 25-year-old gals,
Just living our lives.
or not really living our lives, thanks
We're in a
to
pandemic.
Miss Rona. Yep.
When big Rona, we're stuck indoors.
Yeah.
Nothing else to do.
Right. Ragad and I have been friends for maybe 2 years now, but we've known each other since, it's been 2 years.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. But you know what's funny is I've known her since grade school.
And
But
high
Ragad
school.
in high school and university. Yeah, we went to the same high school, university, and grade school. And Ragad was a bully.
Shut up. I don't know what
She
you're talking
bullied
about.
me because I'm an immigrant.
That's not. She's a liar.
I am not. And basically, we have reestablished our friendship last year, and we realized that we're both talkers.
We love to talk, and nobody wants to listen.
That sounded so sad. Nobody wants to listen. And what else do you do when you're a talker and nobody wants to listen to you?
I think the first couple times we've talked, people were a little bit interested, and then when we just kept going on and on and on.
Yeah, we're two passionate 25-year-old gals. And that's why we decided to make a podcast, because, our friends and family don't want to listen to us anymore. So we're hoping that strangers on the internet will. We would really appreciate it if you'd listen. Please listen. You don't have to, but please. All right, so since it's our first episode, we decided to talk about the identity crisis. The identity crisis. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, guys. How do you identify your identity crisis?
Okay. Where do I begin? It's a very loaded question, considering I don't really have an identity anymore or ever. I'm Palestinian Canadian, and I just don't really have ties to either or. Sometimes I feel really passionate about one over the other, but on a usual daily basis.
Yeah, and I would also call her uncultured.
And I might appear that way.
That is rude.
That's rude.
So this is where, and this is funny because what you guys just heard is a sample of our dynamic when it comes to our identities, because I am Palestinian as well, but I'm also Jordanian and I'm Canadian, and I came to Canada when I was like 11 or 12, and Ragad came here when she was 2. So I have really strong ties to back home. I go back to Jordan almost every summer. And, I have friends and I have tons of family, and I would consider it home. But Ragad does not do that. She doesn't have any strong ties to the Middle East. And I've spent a lot of our friendship basically roasting her for being too Canadian. And that's not right. I apologize.
I don't forgive you.
Noted.
But when people talk about back home, it's a very foreign concept to me, because my only home has been Canada. In Ontario, and it's the only thing I ever knew. It's not like I even travel that often overseas. I think I've visited one Middle Eastern country all my life, and it wasn't even Palestine, so it's not like it's my homeland where I'm like, oh my god, I have a yearning to go back. I mean, I would love to visit it, but I just don't have any sort of deeper roots. I don't even have family. I have like one aunt living in Palestine. And I'm so glad I do, because it's the only thing really tying me over there at this point. So it's just underwhelming being me.
I would agree. Oh my god, I'm being so mean. I'm so sorry. So then this comes into the idea of being immigrants. We are immigrants, and being an immigrant is a very interesting part of your identity. Even though we've all come from different places under different circumstances, ranging from coming here as as an international student to being a refugee. It varies, of course. But I think we can all talk about how much, man, it's so great when you're like in a room full of white people and then you see one immigrant. And it could be anything. It could be somebody from anywhere in the world. And you're like, wow, are you my fellow comrade? And this happens a lot. And it reminds me of that great scene. Did you ever watch Get Out?
I did, and I loved it.
I love Get Out, and Jordan Peele is a great director, and he has this bit, and spoiler alert for those of you who didn't watch it.
I mean, if they didn't watch it by now, they don't want to watch it, and you deserve to get spoiled.
Fact, yeah. And there's this great scene where our main character is in this party scene with a bunch of older white folks, and he's clearly uncomfortable. because he feels alienated and weirded out. And he sees this other black guy and he approaches him with so much ease. He's so happy to see him and he like shakes his hand and he's excited to see him. And he says something along the lines of like, like it's weird here. I'm so glad you're here. And then that character, spoiler alert, who's not actually a black guy, he says out loud, "Oh, you're happy that I'm here because I'm a fellow black man and it makes you feel comfortable. Isn't that right?"
So
And it
creepy.
was the first time that you've actually like seen that.
It's a very relatable concept that I think we all go through, whether we want to accept it or not. I enter a room and constantly searching for the next immigrant or the next foreign face I can find, which maybe in a way it can sound discriminatory.
It's not you, it's me.
It really isn't you.
Yeah, we're on edge, dog.
Just an anxiety ball of confusion, and I just need to find the next person that sort of looks like me. It doesn't have to be exactly, but I know at least we're sharing some sort of level of just isolation or
Trauma.
trauma. We've probably experienced discrimination at some point, so we have that to bind us together.
That person can be literal garbage, but you would still be like, well, better than nothing.
You gotta
Very
take what you can get in this cold,
Yeah, it's
cold
very
world.
pathetic. Yeah. So then we have this idea that since we're so, we're really trying to find ourselves and try to relate to something, y'all, we can really overcompensate for a lack of identity. And it's not cute. You swing, like, you see people swing towards one side so aggressively. And I'm not on TikTok, but Ragad is, and she said that that is a whole vibe. Please tell us about that.
Oh, it's truly embarrassing, if you will. It's so embarrassing to see these weird little stereotypes constantly being reused. It's not even like it's like, okay, I get it. Okay, you want to make a joke about Matluba, but why do you have to do it in every single video?
Yeah.
And the fact that like they love clinging onto this idea that they're constantly being abused by their parents, which first of all, that's not funny.
It is not funny, ma'am.
It's traumatic. And I want to know how many of these children are actually being hit by their mom. I don't remember the last time I've encountered a child that's been getting beat every day with a slipper. You know what I mean? And it's just a constant.
We're referring to like our own children, not like, children that we know. Not we're not assuming that children in the world are wreaking havoc.
And I'm talking about most Gen Z children are actually living in a much more privileged, luxurious lifestyle than
As they should be.
as they should. I'm
Glad they are.
glad. I don't want you to live with trauma. It's not something glamorized. It's not something to wish for or just to make jokes about all the time. Why don't you have a personality?
Yeah, being Arab is not
It's not
is
a
not those, like
personality.
no, it's not. And it's not like a list of 10 things that you have to experience in order to be Arab.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I got hit by a slipper. I ate hummus and food until I got diarrhea. Um, number 3, what else is on that list? I have an uncle who owns a BMW. I am hairy. I have generational trauma. It's so like performative. It's so performative.
It's very stereotypical and like let it go. Just let it go. It's not us anymore. Maybe it was, but I beg you to find Arabs nowadays that are being this way.
Yeah, and try to find yourself in a more dynamic manner. Try to find more complex ideologies, maybe more complex characteristics of being an Arab, and try to add those to the list instead of repeating and recycling the same 4 things that you know.
I just don't want my culture and heritage and everything my parents ever stood for to be so minimized in a 30-second TikTok of getting abused by a slipper. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. And this comes with the idea like, okay, I get it. I am really excited about the fact, kind of, not too much, that being ethnic is cool now. All the kids want to be ethnic. Hello?
Oh,
It's
I'm
cool
so
to be
glad.
ethnic.
I'm not getting bullied anymore for it. Thank
Yeah.
you, world.
I'm so glad. I will say that this new wave has caused us to want to relate to our backgrounds, but not being able to. And this is where a lot of this performance comes from. And there's better ways to be a part of your culture and enjoy those characteristics. Like Karakat was talking about this really cool thing that I have actually never been to called Yeoman, which means like the day of the land.
Yeah,
right? That's how you
it's Palestinian Land Day, and not to get too political with it, it's a day that we commemorate our Palestinian identity and we just celebrate and have a good time. It's filled with cultural dances. So we do depka, we eat traditional food, and we might have the occasional traditional lady of the city come in and make jokes and interact with the audience a bit more with certain idioms that people living in the West would never have heard of before. So it's a very nice way to get the community together. We see a lot of Palestinians that we didn't even know. Like, to be honest, I see new faces that I'm like, I lived in the city for 23 years, and sometimes I'll see a new face and I'd be like, wow, where have you been living? Here?
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. It's very much bringing the community together, and I think that's the whole point of it. And it's, for being Palestinian specifically, it's nice to have some sort of home feeling with the people around you, knowing that you're kind of all isolated from your country, and it brings you guys together and it strengthens the cultural ties.
Cool. I like that. All right, should I jump right into the next one then?
Next one.
All right. So then, something that is really cool about being an immigrant that we get to experience is meeting people that are either like similar to us or from the same maybe ethnic background. In our case, fellow Arabs that you probably wouldn't be able to meet if you were living back home. So I remember coming to Canada and being really excited about meeting Egyptians or meeting Lebanese people or Syrians. It was so exciting.
That's so bizarre.
Because, yeah, right. It's very strange. Like, I've been consuming media from all of these places my whole life, but actually meeting them in the flesh was really exciting. And then you find all these things that you're completely oblivious to. And then you find things between each other, between you and them that are identical. And it's really, really cool, this process of getting to know fellow Arabs, somebody from the region with a completely different culture and a different language. And you're getting to have these bonds for the first time in your life, disregarding the fact that you basically, the countries are right next to each other. Geographically, you're close, but culturally, you're not.
I just want to interject and say that for me, considering I'm called whitewashed, I experience different cultures on a daily basis. So, not to put one over you, but I did experience them first.
What the hell kind of garbage is that? She's still immigrant shaming me. You know what? I don't even care.
I don't even care.
I don't care. I have so many friends now. I don't need you.
Wow.
Which brings me to the fact that I actually, you know what? Here's what I have over Ragad, you guys. Since Ragad was a little crust and she grew up with the same 4 friends who are still her friends, by the way. She has always stuck with other Arabs, but because I, a cultured queen, a multicultural queen, if you will, I went to public school and I had a bunch of friends from all over the world. And it took Ragad forever to do that because Ragad was a little snobby Arab that would only hang out with other snobby Arabs. And you know what? I'm happy that I wasn't even friends with you.
First of all, you're lucky you had the privilege to go to public school. Second, the minute...
It is a privilege.
It is a privilege. I've been begging since I was I could talk.
Take me out of this private school. It's very true, y'all.
Second of all, the minute I entered public school, again, it's the same scene where I scanned for the nearest ethnic person. I couldn't find an Arab. That's fine. Move on to the next. And that's what I did. And they stuck for the rest of my life. So
yeah, maybe you just lucked out with some good people. Because I remember the first time it was my first day in public school, and I walked in, and this Arab guy, as I sat down and I was shaking with fear, I was quaking, y'all, because of all those unfamiliar faces. And this Arab guy looks at me dead in the eye. I've never seen him in my life, and he goes, "Hey, are you Sunni or Shia?"
No.
Yeah, and I looked at him and I was like, first of all, what is that? Well, first of all, I'm 11, okay? I don't care. I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't care. Second of all, why are you trying to confront me? If I wasn't the right sect of religion, you're gonna beat my ass in the courtyard.
I'm gonna call your mom.
Yeah, you're gonna snitch on me. It was very strange. And then 2 days later, he told me Doritos are haram. This kid, you know what? Looking back now, this kid was trouble. If you hear this, you know who you are. DM me. Let's talk about it. Because honestly, you're a troubled child.
He's got other things to worry about than Doritos at this point.
Facts. And so then right away, I was like, this is not my vibe. And that's when I met my friend Enya, who is Bosnian. And since then, she introduced me to other people who were of different ethnic backgrounds. And I think that's where I felt most comfortable. So maybe it was just about my personal bubble and your personal bubble. Like you found comfort in the people you were friends with, and I found comfort with mine. And I think based on that, I assumed that I would never be able to befriend Arabs here since I've had a few bad experiences. And I think that's a bit silly. Now, looking back,
I do think, though, that the Arabs here, the Arabs online, the Arabs on TikTok, they do like to clique themselves, and they have that same checklist, that same damn checklist where if you don't hit the right sort of status, you don't hit the right level of religion versus what's the opposite of religion? Non-religion. You don't hit certain cultural norms. Like if you're not argeling, or sorry, doing like argile, or what's the English? Oh my god.
hookah.
If you're not hookahing every night with them, or if you're not, I don't know, if you're not on the same page as them of what it means to be an Arab, then you're not considered Arab and part of their group.
Yes.
So it's alienating. And if you look at me, myself, I didn't really start having Arab friends until maybe university. Most of my friends belong to Daisy backgrounds, and I have been having a good time with them. No complaints from me.
What a weird thing to say. No complaints here.
No complaints.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 would recommend. And yeah, I really didn't start having Arab friends till university, and even the ones that I did have didn't really cling to their culture all that much. Don't get me wrong, that's not to say that they were whitewashed, but they did acknowledge the fact they were Canadian, and they did interact with society.
Yeah. It's definitely like it's so strange because it can go either way. But I mean, for example, like you can meet groups that have a checklist about you not being quote unquote Canadian enough or Western enough. And then you have other people who have checklists about you not being Arab enough or Muslim enough or Catholic enough or whatever it may be. So you end up, and this, we do this a lot, I think, and a lot of in our Arab community is that we end up just making these standards and these like demands of people when we as individuals in general, not just Arabs, we are dynamic and we are complex and we don't fall into certain categories. Or we might be radical about one thing and not radical about the other. You might be religious about one thing but not religious about something, other than that. It's very odd to put all these standards on people, and we do that. And I think it like alienates us from each other.
Yeah, rather
which
than
is garbage.
focusing on the fact that we're kind of in this foreign country together, it's very much, no, I am accepted into this society and you're not. And I'm not going to bring you along with me. I'm better than you.
Right.
It's like Survivor, that you don't want anybody else to float with you. And it's discouraging to have those type of people in your community.
Yeah, right. And I would rather, honestly, like I would rather fight my own fight than also having to fake being a certain type of Arab, because we have to do that a lot. I think we see that with a lot of communities, not just ours, but for sure. There's a certain standard of like straight up being a liar or hiding parts of yourselves in order to fit in with your community. It's neither here nor there. Like it's never helped. It's always caused, like you see one of your homegirls like out with a boy, and then next thing you know, like everybody in town knows because somebody snitched. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just let people live. Why can't we go on dates?
Because we're so nosy. We love to know what our neighbor's up to. I wouldn't be surprised if during the pandemic, a lot of these families were standing outside their window just observing.
Just eating, like, just eating and
watching.
Drinking mango juice.
Mango juice, guava.
We love guava juice, dog.
So
I think that's where the whole concept of white passing versus white privilege comes into play, because you might be white passing and from far away you look like, you belong. Physically, you're white passing. Even, in your speech, in your conversation, there's no accent for the most part. There's no distinguishing feature, but then the minute you introduce your name, like, hi, my name is Ragad. Hi, my name is Muhammad. It automatically puts like a little barrier and the stereotypes are automatically thrown at you. It may be that, with the news and the media, it's really hard to distinguish between what you see on TV and the Arabs that you see in real life. And it's really easy to kind of confuse the two. But at the same time, we live in a very diverse community. Like, Canada's known for being multicultural. And if you can't realize that reality is different, then
that's your problem.
we need to stop
Yeah.
as Arabs, stop trying so
Definitely.
hard to fit in and stop trying to belong, because like I said, we might be white passing, but we do not have white privilege.
Yeah.
The minute they know that you are of a different nationality, particularly one that's been war torn and has had conflicts with Western countries, you're kind of put into this little, oh, we'll keep you around, but we're going to keep an eye out on you as well.
Mm-hmm. You can be made into a token. You can be dismissed. These are things that we immigrants experience a lot, and we can really, if you get into it, you see the issues that immigrants face, particularly, let's say, in Canada. It's layered. It's definitely like a topic that is to be discussed another day, but that's the issue of when you are trying so hard to fit in. I think you automatically sort of end up doing the complete opposite. What I've experienced is being my genuine self and expressing who I am as not just an Arab or a Muslim woman, but rather just as a man, just me. That has been far more advantageous to me than trying to be something that I'm not, which is either white passing or not white passing, whitewashed, or as like a stereotypical Arab. Being yourself is the most advantageous, and if it's not, then you have to make it that way. You know what I mean? We all have to become our genuine selves in order to get to the point where you will be accepted for simply being yourself.
Absolutely. I think that's
You know what I mean?
what's worked for me at this point as well. Because like I said, I don't wake up one day like, good morning, world, I am Palestinian.
Hello.
I don't do that in my day-to-day life. When I introduce myself, I don't introduce myself like, hi, I am a Palestinian Canadian. It's just, hey, I'm Ragad. Nice to meet you. Actually, I wish I could say that. Hi, I'm Ragged or Ragad or Raghad,
Ragged.
however you want to pronounce it.
I love regard. Yes, it's very middle aged. Regard, do so.
I regard you in the highest regard. Oh, so bad. But
the other thing that you're kind of talking about is being like unapologetically yourself comes with kind of realizations and a lot of, you kind of have to talk about immigrational trauma. And this is something that we never discuss. And this is definitely something that Raghan and I have spoke about, but it deserves its own episodes if that's, it's a bit depressing, but it is quite grim. But it's something that I've really noticed recently. I don't know why recently it's been very clear to me of the idea of none of us talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, are we not? I don't know if we're not allowed. Is first of all, the idea of being an immigrant or being somebody who's not even an immigrant or a refugee, somebody who has escaped, quote unquote, or left, quote unquote, whether they wanted to or not, and have come here, you're supposed to automatically be really thankful and really excited and really happy that you're Canadian. But what about all the things that you've been through? You're almost not allowed to talk about them with people. You're supposed to kind of just try to move on. And that's hard to do. And that's why a lot of us, I think a lot of immigrants, we have all this baggage, and it's because we haven't addressed the trauma that we witnessed before coming here and after coming here. They're two different separate traumas, and they're both horrific. Like, I don't know about you, Ragad, but I remember all the shit that we had to go through. None of it was fucking pleasant.
I don't remember. And I think my level of trauma, and I don't even know if I can really describe it as trauma, because a lot of it happened probably subconsciously, but this is probably where we end up differing. So I've always been interested in this topic, but when you consider our families or like what is the first generation of Canadian? Is that when the first people that come here, or is that the first people born here?
No, so first generation is like people that have come here. So I'm first generation. Second generation would be like one of your siblings who was born here.
Got it. So first generation parents, when they're forced to leave everything they have behind.
Just imagining it, it's horrific.
If it comes from, if they are inspired to leave because of war, because of the crumbling society, because of job opportunities, educational opportunities, whatever the reason is, the minute they decide to leave everything they've ever known, and including family, including previous career options, including their home, like their physical house. Like that is all traumatizing in a way. You come into this
Right.
new land, you have no idea the language, you barely know how society runs here, you barely know how to fill out all these forms, and people are questioning you, people are treating you a little bit differently.
Or a lot differently.
There's a lot to like unpack there, and I can't even imagine the stress that they had to experience coming here looking for a job right away to support their families. That's something that I think we take for granted a lot when you look at, like, you know, immigrant parents. It's so easy to make fun of them with the whole shoe hitting shit, but
Right.
you don't realize that they've been through so much for you to be here. And for me, being a first generation Canadian, because I did come here at a very young age, I came here at 2. I don't remember a lot of it because all my life I just grew up in my city. But I have a hard time believing that the stress my parents went through, the whole changing your environment, did not play a toll in my psychology and my personality now. Because even now, when I'm exposed to different types of people, I like to observe first before I throw myself into a situation. I'm just constantly on edge. So
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if that really has anything to do with who I am, or maybe to a certain degree that all, I think, plays a role into your identity as a person.
Yeah, and I think like the thing is, like you said, Ragad, I think all these aspects actually identify the identity crisis, right? Like this is exactly what the identity crisis is trying to piece together your history and, you know, your experiences today, and then looking onto the future as somebody who doesn't quite fit in. This is something that, and you know what? It's not just here. You see it. If I reckon that if you spoke to an Arab, let's say if you spoke to a Palestinian who's working in Turkey, they would have probably faced their own issues, and they're probably going through their own identity crisis. And the point is it's okay, I think, is the conclusion. Oddly enough, it's okay to not know. You know, when Ragad was talking about how you feel so lost and you're confused and you don't even know what your identity is, like, I think that's kind of healthy because you've started the first step, which is acknowledging the fact that it's not a simple topic, and simplifying it by, you know, attaching stereotypes to it is nothing but damaging. I think, at least I think so.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we just keep having these types of conversations with other Arabs or with other immigrants. I can only speak about the Arab struggle, I guess you can say, because I am Arab, but I don't doubt that other immigrants of different backgrounds probably went through the same exact thing. And I think the only way you can really figure out your identity at that point is just by discussing it with those around you, those that experience the same thing, or differing levels of, not necessarily trauma. We don't want to cry every time we have a discussion.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be like that.
No, it's not supposed to be a depressing thing, but having that kind of open dialogue, I think it allows you to shape your identity a little bit better. It keeps your other identity alive. When you're Canadian, you're surrounded by Canadian culture, Canadian schools, Canadian language, English, Canadian TV. Like, you're constantly
Or French.
or French. No discrimination. Oui.
Or indigenous languages. Oh, Ragad.
I So we're constantly surrounded by Canadian culture, but having no reminder of our own culture is a little bit hard. And I think that's where we start to want to really cling on to whatever stereotype. Like, you know what? It's a stereotype. Give it to me. I'm going to cling on to it. At least it's something. And that's why, like, you know, now that I'm looking back at it, I understand where these kids are coming from. And I think it's even harder for them because, at least for us first generation Canadians, maybe even second generation Canadians, our parents are still instilling those values with us because it's so fresh. But then you hit the third generation, the fourth generation, you kind of lose a little bit of that spark.
It dissipates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even the language, like, for example, for me, my Arabic is shite. I wish it was better. And I know my dad, if he was listening, he would be like, I told you this all throughout your life, speak Arabic. And I defied him because I was just a brat. But now
She was.
I was a huge brat. But now I'm not. And I wish I learned the language. I really do. Like, I do speak a little bit of Arabic and I do understand it, but it's never to the level of being fluent and like somebody that born and raised overseas. I wish I can even just joke in Arabic, but all that to say,
Yeah,
it sucks.
it does suck. Yeah, dude, it sucks. And I think this is actually funny because I think we came to maybe our hypothesis changed a bit. Maybe these dumbass kids who are saying the dumbass stuff, which is, by the way, I'm not like being like, damn kids, like,
We're
stop
still
with your Justin
25.
Bieber.
We're still fun.
Yeah. I think that maybe the bone that we have to pick is not really with them, but with their situation and with their lack of resources. And haram, it really isn't their choice. And like I used to make fun of Ragad because of her bad English, her bad Arabic, excuse
I
me.
have bad English too.
And yep, that too.
Actually, that's also another struggle, by the way, when you grow up, shit in both Arabic and English, and your mind is having trouble speaking all the time.
Communicating.
It's tough.
And I used to I was talking to Ragad about how I used to make fun of, I don't know if you guys know her, I'm sure most of you do, Huda Beauty. And Huda Beauty is this YouTube guru who's Arab, and she used to do tutorials from time to time in Arabic. And I used to make fun of her because her Arabic is quite poor. But when maybe maybe 2 years ago or something, I came to this realization that this isn't really cool. Making fun of somebody who's trying to learn a language is not cool. And me feeling superior because I already know this language because I'm fully bilingual is not cool. So I remember with Rakhad, like when I realized that she was trying to learn Arabic, I had to have this conversation with her. It's like, hey, you can trust me enough to practice with me and there would be no judgment here. And I feel like a lot of us need to do this with each other in regards to everything, not just language, and not just between Arabs. Whatever kind of minority you are, I think holding the hand of somebody else that was in your situation or is in a worse situation is better than mocking them, is better than alienating them, is better than putting them into bubbles. Just accept people for who they are and just, try to grow from that.
Yeah, grow, my guy. It's not easy out here.
I really went off.
I love the fact that a man acknowledged her poor behavior towards me.
Oh, piss off. Listen, me saying that your Arabic sounds like you've been hit by a truck
Watch
is not
yourself.
nearly as bad as the way that Ragad didn't let anybody be friends with me in grade 6. And she had to okay people if they could talk to me, y'all. She was just, God, you were such a little creep, such a little brat creep.
She's a
And I'm
liar.
gonna put you up
A liar.
I'm making threats and I will go through with them. But Ragad and I are very much alike and very different. And I think this is why this podcast will prove to be, as successful as it could be.
I hope so. I think we have a lot to offer in terms of perspective. Like, I don't know if you guys know me, but I mean, I hope so. I'm sharing this with a lot of friends and family.
Yeah.
I do wear the hijab. That's something that kind of differentiates me from a man, where I don't want to speak on your religious
What,
background.
You're going to say that I'm not a hijab wearer? I think that'd be pretty obvious. Yeah, I don't wear hijab.
Yeah, so that automatically puts us in two different experiences.
Yeah.
Two different outlooks on life. We were talking earlier that what do we identify more with, whether it being Arab or Muslim. So for me, I'm a visible hijab wearer and I automatically am considered Muslim because that's the first thing people see.
Even have a choice.
Yeah, I don't get the choice. People are just like, hey, you Muslim girl, come over here. Help me out. I'm like, okay, sir, no problem. I'm coming.
What is happening in that situation? Where are you? And can I help? Weirdo. Yeah, Ragad is a hijabi. And Ragad, let me tell you something. Ragad is pale.
Oh.
And she's a hijab wearer. Just being mean. No. I mean, like, if you would have, I'm guessing, Ragad, if you were in a space without your hijab, you wouldn't stand out as much as you do now.
Definitely.
And the reason why my experience is different is because I don't wear the hijab. And generally, people that are not as used to being around Muslims or whatever may be feel oddly like more comfortable with me. And that could be a good thing and a bad thing. They can be comfortable with me because they're like, whatever, like, oh, like this seems like something I'm more accustomed to.
Yeah, she's not
but it can be bad because they're like, oh, she's cool. Well, I'm a cool Muslim. I'm not like the other Muslims.
So I'm not like other girls.
Yeah, I'm not like the other girls. But the issue is that they actually, a lot of people have assumed they would speak ill of women that wear the hijab, but they speak ill of visible Muslims because they think that I'm like not on their team. Do not be that person. Nobody wants to be the moderate version of what you like, a moderate Muslim, like a perfect moderate Muslim. We are not, nobody likes that. Nobody wants it. We're not living to please you, you weirdo. Stop it. Get help.
Stop it. And they don't realize that a lot of people in your family wear the hijab. It's not like something
Yeah, right?
that you're
My mom.
actively, constantly opposing. You're not on the streets
With my sign up.
with your sign.
Tear down hijab.
I don't know where they get this impression from. Like I don't understand. I don't understand.
I don't. Okay, sorry. But it's true. We don't understand. And like I was saying, she identifies as Muslim before Arab because she, half of it is she doesn't really have a choice. And with me, I disagree with her. I identify as Arab before Muslim. And maybe it's because I'm not visibly Muslim.
Maybe
And maybe it's
you grew up in the Middle East. Like you grew up in Jordan.
yeah.
And in Jordan, everyone's automatically assumed to be Muslim, so you never really had to
Yeah.
advocate for the fact that you're Muslim. It's just
Right.
that's the society you grew up in. That's the culture. It's part of the culture.
Right. Islam is the majority in Jordan. And if you are the Catholic or the Christian person, it doesn't mean that you're like an alien, but you were the minority. So then people just assume that everybody is Muslim, which of course is false. But of course, this is something that I never had to really deal with. And then I came here and I think people wanted me to like have that identity. And I just never got one. But that's okay. Like I feel like my Muslim identity grows with me as well as my Arab identity, as well as every other part of myself.
It's a
And I
journey.
feel like Ragad, you would agree, right? Like we change. God, we change so much. We change all the time.
Oh God, I cringe just at me 5 years ago. Just even with the fact that like I didn't really attempt to bother with my culture. It was always something I took for granted. I'm like, whatever, my parents are Palestinian. I don't have to rely on myself to keep that going. But now that I'm older, now that like, I'm in my mid-20s, ugh, terrible to say. I
Ew. Ugh.
would I would really like to stand on my own 2 feet and say, hey, like I am Palestinian and I am Canadian and I have aspects of both. Right now it's kind of hard to say what those aspects are, but I would like to eventually be like, okay, I'm comfortable in both skins and I'm comfortable in just living my life without really justifying my identity.
Yes, that's vital. And we kind of want to pass off this question on to you guys is what do you identify as? What do you struggle with in regards to your personal identity? It's a journey and would be really interested to hear it. And of course, even though we are 2 Arab women and we talk a lot about our experiences, we obviously want to hear from you. And we want to make sure that you are included in this conversation, wherever you are from and whatever you identify as. And so this will be the end of our first episode. Yay!
Yay, we did it!
We did it. And we really want you guys to join us if you would like. We're going to be releasing episodes weekly.
And they're not all going to be this heavy.
Oh yeah, this was heavy.
This was heavy, but to be honest, whatever podcast topic we choose, it's just going to be whatever we want to complain about.
Yeah. Yeah, truly.
Essentially, we just want an outlet to just rant about things that we see on a day-to-day basis or feel or experience and really discuss them, try to figure out certain things through conversation. And we really hope that you guys join us on this.
So please make sure to listen to our podcast and to follow us on Instagram on Expired Musings, where we'll be posting all our updates. And we'd really like to see some comments about what kind of topics you guys are interested in hearing. We'd love to have your voice included. And that's it from us, from the Expired Musing Gals. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Love you.
Love you.
See you.
See you.